Krishna. Thank you very much for coming today. How many of you were there yesterday for the talk? Okay. So a few of you are not there. So today I'll speak broadly on the topic of how a spiritual vision of life can improve our way of functioning in the world, the understanding with which you can function in the world. So I'll basically talk about the principle of karma and how it can be helped by spirituality. I'll speak briefly and then we will have question answers. So when we use the word karma, I hope it's visible to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So when you hear the word karma, what comes to your mind? What do you think karma means?
Karma is something, what we think, what we do, and what we speak. So the way of thinking, what we are saying, and what we are conducting is karma.
So karma is associated with thoughts, words, actions. So are you saying that all these comprise karma, or are you saying these are the cause of karma, or what are you saying? The components of karma?
I
Or?
understand these are different components of karma.
Okay, thoughts, words they are components of karma. Okay, yes. So every word that we speak is also a part of karma. Just like we can say from a legal perspective, if we attack someone, then there are consequences. But even if we verbally attack someone, there can be libel, there can be character assassination. So even words have consequences. Yes, good, thank you. So anything else?
I'm not sure about intention.
Intention. We'll come to that a little later. True. So basically, anything else comes to your mind when we use the word karma?
It's a reaction, karmic reaction.
Okay. Karma can mean reaction. Yes. So, anything else?
Your duty.
Karma can refer to duty, right? So, you could say that it is more of the right or the responsible action. Everyone has to do their karma. Correct. Anything else?
In the modern parlance, karma comes back.
Okay, karma is that which comes back to you. So, what goes around comes around. That's what it is said. So, here we are using the word karma more in the sense of something like some word starting from L, 3-letter word. Karma, we are using it in the sense of a 3-letter word starting with L. Dishika? Common word. 3-letter word starting with L, ending with W. So, we say the law of karma, for example, isn't it? Nobody can escape the law of karma. So, sometimes the idea of karma can be confusing because the word itself can be used with different meanings. So, here if you see, we just look at it, karma can mean action, karma can also mean reaction. So, that means everyone is constantly doing some karma. Krishna uses this in 3rd chapter, that nobody can be doing without doing any karma. So, that is karma in terms of action. Karma can also be in terms of reaction. We will all have to suffer our karma. That means the action that we have done, we'll get the reactions for it. So karma can also refer to the law of action-reaction. Isn't it like the law of karma is infallible. The law of karma is inescapable. That is, human law we can escape, but the law of karma we can't. Maybe all of you can come a little ahead, please. So just... That's interesting. Sorry. I think you'll have to put this down. Maybe bring it here. Bring it here. If it becomes too crowded, you can sit here with me. So the word karma, as it can also refer to the right action. Everybody has to do their karma. So the point is that karma can have many different meanings. And that's why itself, it can become complicated. So, for example, the English word run, it is supposed to have 540 meanings. I am going for a run. I am running because my car has stopped running. I am running away from this country because this person is running for president. So sometimes when we use a word, you say, I am running away to America. Somebody asks, how will you run across the ocean? So two people are using the word in two different senses of the meaning. So like that, karma can also refer to different things. But I'll talk about karma more from a practical perspective to understand how understanding karma can help us function more effectively. So in general, our belief is that if we do an action, there will be a result. There will be some result. So, if a child comes back from school and has got some scratch on the arm, what happened, we'll ask. He said, no, it just happened by chance. No, what happened? Something must have happened by which it caused it. So when we see a result, we presume there is a cause. And when we see an action, we understand there will be a result of that. So in general, we can say action leads to result. That is a basic understanding of karma. But it's not that simple. So you can say this is karma and this is phala. So I will take this understanding, and education has two parts to it. Education is to make the simple complicated and makes the complex simple. It depends on what is required. So, for example, when we are teaching a child colors, first we will say, okay, this is black, this is white. And that's why there's very opposite colors, and we make it very clear. Okay, this is black, this is white. But then afterwards we tell the children, okay, the whole world is not black and white. There are so many shades of grey in between. And they also have to be understood. So in that sense, education has these two aspects to it. Make what we think is simple, complex. Or rather, we don't make it complex, we reveal how it is actually complex. It's not that simple. And the other aspect is also, don't keep it complex. As much as possible, make the complex simple. So we will try to do both today. First, we'll try to we'll start from the simple, we'll make it a little, show its complexity, and then we'll come back to the simplicity. So this is at a very simple level. Karma means action leads to result. So this is at a very simple level. Now we can add one layer of complexity to it. If there is action and then there is result, there is something in between, and that is time. Not all actions lead to results immediately. If I put my hand in fire, I'll get burned immediately. But if I go out in the sun for maybe 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, then maybe I'll get some sunburn after some time. Maybe my skin will get rash. Maybe if there's too much exposure, somebody might get some kind of skin cancer also, or some other skin diseases. So actions don't lead to results immediately. So between karma and phala, there is also kala. So karma with kala will lead to phala. So for example, if you plant a tree, then if you plant some shrubs or herbs, they might grow within a few months. If you plant a mango tree, it might take a long time. Now if a mother tells a child, you should drink this milk, you will become strong by it. Okay, then the child drinks a glass of milk and then looks at his muscles and not becomes stronger. Well, there, karma will lead to phala, but kala is there. It's not one day it's going to happen. You take nutritious food regularly, then you will become stronger. So that's one factor, karma and kala. But now sometimes karma may not seem to lead to any phala at all. So, for example, some people, if you see, they have little poor digestive system. So they little imbalance in their food, and immediately their health gets upset, their body gets bloated, and things go wrong. And for them, the karma leads to phala very immediately. But somebody else, they seem to treat their tongue like a conveyor belt. Anything and everything they eat, and still nothing seems to happen to them. They remain fit, they remain slim. So, sometimes it may appear that karma doesn't lead to any phala. And that is why we often have the question, why do, say, what is the common question? Why do bad things happen to good people? I'm doing good, but instead of getting something good, I'm getting something bad. Or there's the opposite questions. Why do good things happen to bad people? That's also there. So that is where one more factor comes in. That, see, there is, we could say action, but it's more specifically, it is present action. And then there is time, and then there is result. But it's not just that. This is karma, kala, and what is this? Phala, the result. But there's one more factor here. That is, you can say, past action. And this is called as daiva. So, daiva also contributes. So, for example, let's start with something simple. Say, some kids maybe say very good at language. They just have maybe some kids are very good at music. Some kids are maybe very good at art. So, they draw something and people can't believe how a 5-year-old child do this. Somebody draws up, say, a peacock, a beautiful peacock. See, I can't believe that a 5-year-old child drew it. And then some other child drives a peacock and you feel, I can't believe this is a peacock. So, now what happens is, now both may spend about the same amount of time. Maybe one child spends about half an hour drawing, second child also spends half an hour drawing. So, why the difference? That is, here we see there is a talent. There is talent which is almost something like a starting point in this life. Different people have different talents. And the talent that we get in this life comes from our purva karma. That is our daiva. Now, talent could be one thing. It could also be wealth. It could be looks. It could be IQ. There are different things which we get from our purva karma. And the purva karma also shapes how we get the phala. So now exactly in which situation, how much these factors will contribute, that can vary. So for example, even now the Cricket World Cup is going on. Now some batsmen are just so phenomenally talented. Any kind of ball, they can hit any kind of shot. And others, they can't even imagine moving their hand and arms like that. And it's a fast coming ball and they just swing and hit. So there are some people just extraordinarily talented. So for them, they may not even need to practice too much. For somebody else, the practice is required a lot. So the point I'm making is, sometimes we may say that this past action may play 50% role. This may play 50% role. And that's how the 100% comes up. Sometimes the past action may play 10% role. The present action may play 90% role. Sometimes the past action may 90% and the present may be 10%. That means the person has so much talent that they don't really have to work very hard. So I'm a writer, I write many books. So I know different kinds of authors. So one of my friends, he says that he just gets the whole idea of an article in his mind ready. He says in his mind's eye, he even gets the vision of the paragraph breaks. Okay, this paragraph will end here, this paragraph will start here. And I said, I don't get like that. I have to work hard. So, but I know some other people, they have to work much harder than what I have to work. So he can write one paragraph in 15 minutes. For me, 1 hour, one paragraph may take about, not one paragraph, maybe 500 words. He can write within 15 minutes. It takes me 1 hour for one. Somebody else, it may take 2, 3, or 4 hours. So, how much of the present and the past, present actions contribute and how much the past actions contribute, that can vary from person to person. That depends on the kind of karma that a person has from the past. So we could say totally there is daiva plus karma plus kala leads to phala. So sometimes consider, I will conclude this part with 2 examples, and then we'll go towards the practical part, what this implies for us. So consider a farmer. Now in farming, we could say the karma will be plowing and sowing. So that is the present action, and farmers have to do that diligently. But then after that, there is kala. There is change of seasons. The harvesting season has to come. Only then the crops will come. But along with that, there is rains. Rains in particular, and in general we could say the environment. If locusts come, if some pests come, if a storm comes, so that is daiva. When daiva, karma and kala all come together, then there will be the phala. The phala is the harvest that they will get. Either they will get a good harvest or they may not get a good harvest. So similarly, if you can consider, say, having a child. When a couple gets married, they may want to have a child. But it is not that just by wanting to have a child, they can have a child. The karma could be the union. But just because there is union, that does not mean there is a child. No. Along with union, conception has to happen. Now, sometimes there is union, but there is no conception. And we can try to find out some medical reasons for that. Sometimes some medical solutions help, sometimes they don't seem to help. So it's complex. But even when there is conception, then there is gestation. It's not that the conception is that tomorrow, the next day, the child will be there. So when all these 3 work together, then there is childbirth that happens. So in every area of our life, these 3 factors combine together. Karma, daiva and kala. So once we understand this, in the Bhagavad Gita's context, Arjuna did not want to fight the war. But Krishna told him that this is daiva. You did not seek out this war, but this is the situation that has come in your life. And the Gita's focus is not on going into the past to explore. Krishna does not tell Arjuna in the Gita, say Bhishma was this person in the previous life and you were this person and you had done this to them, he had done this to you and you had done that to them and that's why you have to fight. No. The Gita's mood is that if you consider there as these 3 things, daiva, karma and kala. So these 3 factors, with respect to daiva, there has to be acceptance. So we need to learn to accept that there are some things which may not be working out for us. Now with respect, the acceptance is not the only thing with it. There is also diligence. So if you see karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So that verse 2.47, if you consider, the first line, A, is about karma. Karmanyevadhikarasya. You have to be diligent about doing your karma. But at the same time, ma phaleshu kadachana. Why? Because when he's saying don't be attached to the fruits, don't think you are entitled to the fruits. Why? Because the action alone doesn't determine the result. Ma karma phala hetur bhur. Don't think the karma alone is the cause of the phala. The karma is one cause, but not the sole cause. Ma karma phala hetur bhur. But at the same time, if you think that the karma is not going to bring the phala, then why do karma at all? No. Karma is one cause, but not the sole cause. So, mate sangostva akarmani. Don't become lazy, don't become inactive. Don't just think that, oh, it's all useless. No, our actions do matter. So, with respect to kala, there has to be patience. So, patience with respect to kala, acceptance of daiva, and diligence with respect to karma. These three are what will lead us towards phala. So, if you consider these three, suppose we are going in a particular place where it's tough. If like we wear a pad, like cricket players when they play, they don't want the ball to hit their legs, so they wear a pad. It's a protective. So like that, this understanding, these three parts, this can be it protects us in life. When there is padding in a car, then it acts like a shock absorber. So when we are wearing this pad, this philosophical understanding, then that can act like a shock absorber for us. Sometimes I may feel I'm working so hard. Why am I not getting any result at all? Well, maybe you have to persist for some more time. You have to have patience. Actions don't necessarily lead to results immediately. And sometimes we may have to decide that, yeah, I have tried enough, but in this field it's not working. Then maybe I just stop this and move somewhere else. So maybe this is not in my destiny. Because I was giving the example, I think suppose there was a student quota and he was trying to get into IIT for 7 years. Now the IIT degree is for 4 years or 6 years if you are doing a master's. Now spending 7 years trying to get into IIT is of not much use. You try once, maybe try twice. And okay, if that doesn't work out, that's not in my destiny, let me move on to something else. So sometimes we have to accept. Now that does not mean that every time when something doesn't work, we say it's destiny. Not like that. If I try to draw something and it doesn't work, and I say, my destiny is not there. Well, no. At that time, we have to try. First, maybe everything can be improved by effort. And the question is, how much can it be improved? So, destiny may be determining where our starting point is and how fast the improvement is. So, some people, they can have a very rapid learning. Some people learning may be very gradual. So, it can vary. But once the overall Gita's mood is of this, three things that Arjuna, you be diligent in your duty of fighting. At the same time, accept that this war has come upon you. You didn't go out seeking this war. The Pandavas didn't do anything to antagonize Duryodhana. It was Duryodhana who was envious of them. It was Duryodhana who was targeting them. And his action just went worse and worse and worse. And yes, for dharma to be established, Krishna himself came to establish dharma, but patience. The results don't come immediately. Even when Krishna was with the Pandavas, still the Pandavas went through suffering. The Pandavas, we discussed how they were attempted to be burned and they were exiled. 14 years they had to. 14 years? How many years? 13 years, yeah. 12 plus 1. 13 years they had to be in exile. So like that, they had to struggle. But eventually, they were successful. Now for us to do all these things, I talk about this, patience, acceptance and diligence, all these three becomes easier when we see that there is Krishna's plan for us. That our events in our life, even karma does not happen independently or arbitrarily. Karma means, I'm talking about how our actions lead to results. How exactly, when it is 10% this, 90% that, all that is under Krishna's plan. So suppose somebody meets with an accident. Now that was because, say, somebody was driving drunk and they hit us. Now that is that person's mistake, no doubt. But still, even that is within Krishna's plan. Krishna will bring something good out of that also. If you look at the Pandavas' situation, now the Pandavas being burnt alive or attempted to be burnt alive, they did nothing over there. It was all Kaurava's planning, Duryodhana's misdeed. So when we are suffering right now, if then there is present suffering, it could be because of various causes. It could be because of others' misdeeds. Somebody may be out to hurt us. But we see even through that, Krishna's plan was working. The Pandavas went to the forest, and while they were in the forest, they came to know about Draupadi Swayamvar. And they came in Draupadi Swayamvar, and there Arjuna won Draupadi's hand. And thereby they became much stronger than what they were before. Because Drupada was an extremely powerful king. So through each adversity, even if that adversity was caused by somebody with inimical intentions, somebody with bad intentions, still they emerge stronger. So even if bad people are doing bad things to us, that is still within Krishna's plan for us. We will grow, we will rise. And sometimes our present suffering may be because of our mistakes also. Say for example, we get into an accident because maybe we were inattentive. Maybe while driving we are looking at a phone and we beat ourselves. What a foolish person I am. Yeah, we should take responsibility. Yeah, it was a mistake on my part. I should not be doing this. But even our mistakes are within Krishna's plan. So Yudhishthir, when he gambled, Yudhishthir didn't gamble because he was a gambling addict. He gambled because just before the Kurukshetra war, or after the Rajasuya Yagya had been performed, Vyasadeva had been presiding the ceremony. So he had sought from Vyasadeva blessings. He said, please bless me so that I can rule in an era and bring in an era of peace and prosperity for everyone. Vyasadeva became grave and he said that, I see a very dark future. There will be a terrible war in the future. And after that war, there will be the era of peace and prosperity. So Yudhishthira also became pensive. He said, is there anything I can do to avoid this war? So he thought that war, how does war occur? He had his own reasoning. He says, war happens because of conflicts. Now conflicts, they grow because there are differences of opinion. And those differences escalate because there is disobedience. That means if two people have differences, if both of them accept a common authority, then there is no disobedience. Say two siblings have a fight, both listen to their parents, and the issue can be resolved. So he thought that to avoid war from happening, I will always obey my elders. Now, that was a well-intentioned vow. But then, his elders at that time were people like Dhritarashtra. So, now when Dhritarashtra sent a message to Vidura, say that come for this gambling match, Yudhishthira just couldn't refuse. Now, of course, Yudhishthira didn't blame, Dhritarashtra is so manipulative. It was that he took responsibility. He said, yes, I gambled out of obligation, but the extent of gambling, I got carried away. Now, he did not get carried away because he wanted to earn some more money, but he thought that at least something should be there by which I can take care of my family, take care of my citizens. So it was, in one sense, a mistake. Now, once I told this story, and sometimes after the class, I asked, what do you learn? So there's one boy who said, I learned that obeying our elders is very dangerous. That's not the lesson here. So, Our elders are unlikely to be like Dhritarashtra. We can't assume like that. But the point is that even if we assume that it was a mistake on Yudhishthira's side, it's not exactly a mistake. It was more like a misplaced faith. It is not a mistake, but a misplaced faith. He thought the elders will be well-wishers. Even he knew that Dhritarashtra was attached to Duryodhana. But he never thought that Dhritarashtra would go so far as to have his own daughter-in-law dishonored in public. So, even if it is a mistake, still for argument's sake we assume that. But through that, while the Pandavas were in the forest, they actually became stronger. Arjuna performed austerities by which he got special weapons. Bhima took further training and he practiced his mace fighting even more. Yudhishthir gained further wisdom by discussing with the sages. They performed tapasya, they did yagya, they got more punya. So through it also they became stronger. So the point is that even if something bad is happening to us, we feel, it is because of my mistake, it is because of others' mistakes, it is because of destiny, whether it is because of my activity, whatever it is. If we understand that Maya Adhyakshena Prakriti, it happens under Krishna's plan. Then what we do is we approach that all situations with a service attitude. We pray to Krishna. Krishna, how do you want me to serve you in this situation? Do you want me to persist in this, or do you want me to shift to something else? And if we have that prayerful attitude, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam, Krishna will guide us from within. He can guide us from without, from our various guides. We can have spiritual guides and mentors. They can guide us. But in this way, we all can make the best of the situation that we are in. And we can, from our present choices, create a brighter, better future for ourselves. And this is the key point of karma. Ultimately, the principle of karma is meant to be empowering. The key implication of the principle of karma is that our actions matter. That our choices do matter. And that means by making good choices in the present, each one of us can contribute towards creating a better and brighter future for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for ultimately the world at large. So that is the final implication. Karma is actually meant for empowerment. And that is what happens to Arjuna at the end of the Gita. That he is empowered. That same Arjuna who has put aside his bow in dejection, I can't fight. By the end of Gita, he picks up his bow in readiness to fight. So that Arjuna's picking up his bow represents our confidence, our enthusiasm. Sometimes life can be so complicated, it can be so disheartening that we may also put aside our metaphorical bow. I just can't do this, I quit. But then if we understand the wisdom of the Gita, then we can raise our metaphorical bow. We can become confident that our actions matter, that we can create a better, brighter future for ourselves. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. I started by talking about the many meanings of the word karma. So karma can mean action, it can mean reaction, it can mean law of action reaction, it can mean duty or good action. So we try to place these various understandings of karma within a philosophical context, philosophical picture. So we talked about how the basic understanding of karma is karma will lead to phala. But then it's not that simple. Making the simple complex. That was the part. So what is, if we complexify or complicate it, there are three factors. What are three factors? Does anyone remember?
Kal Deva.
Yes. Daiva plus karma plus kala. That will lead to phala. So we discuss examples of farming, of procreating. Mm. And then we talk about what does this imply for all of us. So if we understand this, then we can have three things. What are three things? P was patience. Patience with respect to kala. Yeah, things will take time. So let me, while doing my part, be patient. We wait. A was, so acceptance was for what? Daiva. Yes. That yeah, certain things may not be happening in my life. Let me accept it. And D was diligence. This is not that common a word. Yeah, diligence basically means continuing on in our to push on. That is with respect to karma. So in doing our duty, we need to be diligent, and all this can be done if we have a seva bhav, if we have a service attitude. That Krishna, you have a plan for me. I have that faith. So please guide me. How do you want me to serve you? So even if our present karma is messed up, we make some mistakes, or because of our past karma, we have some person who is like an enemy in our life and who is hurting us. Even in all those situations, Krishna's plan will guide us towards a better place. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments?
It's out of all these things, it was just a thought while listening to you, that what I understand is that Arjuna at the beginning of Mahabharata was not ready to fight because he thought they are my relatives, what is the use of this, all these things. And by preaching or Desha from Lord Shri Krishna, he was changed. On the other hand, we are summarizing that everything happens due to the will of Krishna. He wants everything to happen. Was there any possibility that Krishna could have changed Duryodhana as well?
Okay.
If yes, why didn't he try?
Yes. So, is it possible that Krishna could have changed Duryodhana? See, in general, when you took a cause of actions, it's a complex field. It's a field of philosophy. It is called etiology. Now, etiology is also used in terms of diseases and what causes diseases. But that's more in medical terms. Causality is also a part of disease. It's a cause in philosophy also. So there are broadly three factors. There is God's will, there is free will, and there is evil. So now, God's will is the supreme cause, but not the sole cause. That means, yes, it is true that nothing happens without God's will. But that does not mean everything is caused by God's will. So how do you understand this difference? Supreme cause, not sole cause. Just like rains are the supreme cause of vegetation on the earth. But the rains don't determine which specific vegetation is going to grow where. That depends on what kind of seeds are sown. So similarly, there is a supreme cause, that is God's will. But beyond that, there is free will. So every individual has free will, and Krishna doesn't override people's free will. So Krishna went as Shanti Doot. Krishna went as a peace messenger personally to seek peace. Now that is like, say, in the Russia-Ukraine war, say either the Russian premier or the Ukrainian premier personally goes to the opposite leader and seeks peace. Normally you have lower level, maybe some general, some commander, some secretary of state. Lower level people go when there's peace missions. But if a top person goes, that means they're really serious. And what was Duryodhana's response? He said, I will not give you enough land to even put the tip of a needle through it. Now, if that had been the age of social media, that would have been a viral Instagram reel. Kya dialogue hai? Isn't it? But in the context, it just shows Duryodhana's arrogance. It's like, say, there's some program, some ceremony, some festival at our home, and we invite somebody, some acquaintance. Now they don't want to come, so they make an excuse. Now they are making an excuse. We know that they are making an excuse, and they know that we know that they are making an excuse. But still, out of courtesy, they are making an excuse. But they say, even if I die, my dead body will never come to your program. Now that is not just a refusal to the invitation. It is a kick in the face of the inviter. Isn't it? So Duryodhana's words were like that. When something like that happens, then there is nothing that can be done. So evil is not some being, some strange being that exists somewhere and does something. Evil is a conditioning. It is a conditioning that is extremely hardened. That person has deep-rooted envy, deep-rooted lust, deep-rooted greed, and they're just not ready to give it up. It becomes, everybody may have some lust, some greed, some anger. But some people's anger is such that they may take up a knife and stab someone to death, kill someone, and they don't even feel anything bad about it. That is deadly. That is where things become evil. So, if this has happened, then there is no peaceful solution. So, so sometimes it's just not possible, even for God, to change a person. Krishna tried his best. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Prabhuji, for someone who leads a very godly life and he does all the good deeds in the world there, and still if they probably in their life they have some physical ailments or they have suffering there, is it because of Deva? Is it something passed from their past life there, or why do they suffer more as compared to if everything has been destined by Krishna's will or by God's will? So why they have to suffer in that? Like they said, in this life you have to do the karma and you have to bhog it as well.
Okay. So now, if we want to look at if somebody is doing good, then what is the cause of suffering? If they are going through some difficulties. Well, anything in this world generally has multiple levels of causes. It's not just one cause. So, what caused a particular suffering is difficult to know. Gahana karmanogati, Krishna says. It's complex. So, in general, we can say whether a person lives a virtuous life or a vicious life. They're good people or bad people. Everybody still has to grow old. Everybody still will get deceased. Everybody will have to die. So, we could say there is like a baseline suffering that is universal. Now, you could of course say that everybody has to grow old and get sick and die. But some people, when they grow old, maybe they have not taken care of their health throughout their life. They've eaten unhealthily and they have been, then maybe the quality of their life in the last 10, 15, 20 years is very poor. Then that is far greater suffering. Everybody will age, but not everybody ages in the same way. So the extent of disease and distress in old age, that can depend on one's present karma also. And that's why if somebody cultivates healthy habits in their youth, in their childhood, in their middle ages, even if not earlier, then they can have a better quality of life towards the end. That's another factor. So this baseline suffering is universal. Then our present karma can also lead to some suffering. Now, generally speaking, the understanding when we are analyzing suffering is to move from the drushta to the adrushta. Move first from the visible cause toward the invisible cause. So, when we immediately escalate towards the immediate cause, towards the invisible cause. Now, beyond that, say somebody has always had very healthy habits and still maybe they get some disease like cancer. Now, why did that happen? No, biologically, medically, we can try to find out some cause, but there's some diseases which are very difficult to find out specific causes for them. We could say it's pollution, it's this, it's this. But if those were the causes, then everybody should be getting it. Why do some people get and some people don't? So that is where we can go towards past karma as an explanation. But there's one very important caveat over here. That if somebody is suffering, it is not our position to judge people based on their past karma. Our focus should be not what is whose past karma. Our focus should be what is my present dharma. Say for example, if somebody is sick, now a doctor should not be thinking, oh, this person is sick because of their past karma. No, if I am a doctor, then my present dharma is to treat the person. If we start escalating all causes to past karma, that is how actually the caste system came, and caste system became extremely discriminatory. Okay, you are born poor, that is because of your past karma. You are born in this particular caste or this particular ethnic group, that is because of your past karma. And therefore, okay, a starting point may be determined by past karma, but that does not mean that that particular group of people have to suffer for the rest of their life or the rest of history. So when every suffering and its cause is escalated to the past karma, then that's when we start becoming heartless. Compassion, kindness, all that start getting lost. So for example, if a baby is crying, a newborn baby is crying, should the mother think the baby is crying because of past karma? That would be monstrous, isn't it? Oh, let me do something to comfort the child. Now sometimes, despite the parents' best comforting, the child may not become peaceful. Now that may be because maybe the child has some physical pain or something like that which you are not able to detect. And maybe some children they cry more than others. So when the drushta solution, when the visible solution doesn't work, so for the visible solution we should be diligent. But if it doesn't work, then we have to have some acceptance. So we shouldn't be jumping towards. So the focus or our focus should be people's past karma. That should never be the past. If that becomes the focus, then that will make us actually heartless. This is what can lead to perpetuation of injustice and cruelty also. We focus on our present dharma. Okay, in this situation, if I have a service attitude, I am by God's arrangement in this situation where this person is suffering. So what can I do about it? So this will actually make us kind. It will make us helpful. And that is what we need in human society. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there any way we can measure karma? Because there is a time delay.
There is a
time, kala, kal. So while doing karma, is there any way we can know that this is a good karma or bad karma, and then we can adjust our actions?
Okay, can we know which is a good karma and which is bad karma? Well, there are two different things. One is knowing, the other is measuring. Well, measuring is difficult. See, many things in life, they are important for us, but they're not measurable. So, for example, if somebody is sick and they are in pain, we can ask them a degree of pain, how much is 1 to 10? And they may say 10,000. They may feel it's unbearable pain, whatever it is. But, we don't have anything like a painometer. You put on the body of the patient and say, let's see how much pain you are in. So there are many things in life which are not subject to mathematical measurement. But still we can evaluate broadly. If somebody's arm is like completely misaligned, you must be in some pain, some serious pain over here, like that. So broadly speaking, the principle of karma is harmony. When we say our actions matter, what it means is that each one of us is a part of larger units that we belong to. So we are a part of a family, we are a part of a community, we are a part of a country, we are a part of the planet Earth. So for every larger unit that is maybe there, it can be family, community, country, planet. Of all of these, from each one of these, we take some things. So if we consider the country, from the country, we take certain facilities. Now, if we are taking something, we need to be giving something. So if we are working in a company, we are taking salary from the company. And the idea is we should be giving something. We should be working. We should be doing our job. So if we are driving on a road and we are a part of that road transport system, so we are taking the facility of the roads, then we have to do something in return. That is, we have to follow the rules. So karma, in one sense, is basically a harmonious way of belonging to a larger whole that we are a part of. And if we don't do our part in that, that is the beginning of bad karma. Just like if somebody drives way above the speed limit, that is culpable. That person will be fined for that. So similarly for all of us, from the various units that we are taking something, we need to be giving something. So suppose somebody gambles. Now gambling is basically what? Generally we work hard and we get money. But somebody is trying to get quick money. So that is considered unhealthy, unethical. If somebody, for example, engages in meat eating. Now, we have to eat food. And if you look at our biology, we look at our anatomy, our bodies are much more oriented for vegetarian food than non-vegetarian food. So we can't avoid causing pain. Even plants, when they are killed, there is some pain. But say when we take fruits, we are not killing anyone. Even if we take harvest of crops, if we don't cut the crops, they are just going to die. But with respect to animals, it's not like that. When they are in the prime of their life, we cut them, we kill them, cause them pain, and we eat. So basically, what are we doing? We are you could say, taking more than what is necessary. We are causing more pain than what is necessary. So that is considered wrong. So bad karma is basically a disharmonious way of belonging to the universe. So if there is, say, unrestrained sexual activity, before marriage or outside marriage, then what is the person doing? See, the reproduction is a basic human function. But when one takes without giving, it is without any responsibility, without any boundaries, then there are consequences for that. So when something is considered bad karma, that is not just some people have decided something, this is bad, and that some people's morality being imposed on everyone. No, it is broadly an understanding of what is harmonious. Okay? Yes.
One more question.
Please.
This is about remedy part. Because we listen, we read, and we try to understand that we should channelize ourselves towards the service and good karmas. But our monkey mind always try to deviate us. What is the proper way of channelizing the mind towards the right pathway?
So how do we direct our mind toward the right path? Firstly, it requires lifelong practice. It's not easy. But there are some things which we can do to make it easier for us. So, broadly, it is internally we have to strengthen ourselves with intelligence. At least we are convinced that this is not good for me. So then even when we are doing something, so suppose somebody likes to eat a lot of unhealthy food. Now maybe the unhealthy food is tasty and we don't want to just be austere throughout our life. You want to eat some foods. But then, if I by intelligence I'm convinced this food is harmful, or at least not beneficial, then we will maintain some boundaries. So if that intellectual conviction itself is not there, then there is no reason to oppose the mind. And the thing is that intelligence has to be repeatedly nourished. It is our intelligence, it is not like a fixed deposit. It is not that one day I invested and it will stay like that forever. No. It is like a stock that is constantly dwindling. If every single day I may make a resolution, this is good for me, this is what I'm going to do. But with every day that keeps dwindling, it keeps decreasing. So that's why regularly nourishing our intelligence. So coming to satsang like this, studying the Bhagavad Gita, all this is meant to nourish our intelligence. Now, the second thing that we all need, along with intelligence, is, one sense intelligence does the same thing, but externally also we need to create some boundaries for ourselves. So Krishna talks about this in 343. Evam buddhe param buddhva. That with your intelligence, you connect yourself with that which is good for you. But at the same time, the world is always going to prompt us, to pull us, tempt us toward that which is not so good for us. Therefore, each one of us needs to create boundaries for ourselves. While society itself provides us some boundaries. But beyond that, each of us, based on where we are vulnerable, we need to create some boundaries. Krishna talks about this in 340. Tasmatvam indriyanya adav niyamya bharatarshapa. That, say for example, if somebody is an alcoholic and they want to give up alcoholism, but their home is right next to a bar. I am very sincere about giving up alcoholism. Well, if you are sincere, then you really need to relocate. If you are right next to a bar, then there will be no bar for you to go to the bar. So we will all, even the best intentioned people, will all have moments of weakness. So we can't constantly rely either on our intelligence or on our willpower. We need to help ourselves by having some boundaries. Indriyanya adav, Krishna says. So boundaries is like protection. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes the best way to deal with temptation is to not deal with temptation. Don't put yourself in situations where you'll be tempted. Again, this is not always possible, but wherever it's possible, it's helpful. And then last is purification. So, intelligence in one sense gives us conviction. Conviction is this is right. And boundaries is I'll make it difficult for myself to do the wrong. That means I'll create some obstacles between myself and doing the wrong thing. But beyond that, each one of us has to purify ourselves. So purification is where we change the tendency of the mind. So in one sense, what we are saying is here, the Gita explains that the mind is in between. Above the mind is the intelligence, and below the mind are the senses. This Krishna talks about this in 341. So what we are doing is, we are doing a three-pronged attack. First is intelligence, there is conviction. We strengthen our intelligence. Then for the senses, there is regulation. Okay, create some boundaries. And gradually for the mind, there is purification. Especially when we practice bhakti, when we connect our mind with Krishna, by remembering him, by chanting his holy names, then that purifies the mind. So this is the final solution. So the more we are connected with Krishna through bhakti, the kama, krodha, lobha, the lust, anger, greed within will start decreasing. And that is when the mind's tendency to go in the unhealthy directions will itself decrease. Okay? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for a wonderful class. Is you mentioned that we all do mistakes, and when we have done mistake, the time comes when you realize it and you feel guilty. So, how does one get out of that point? Like you need some prompt to come out of that state. So how do we cultivate, or how we come out of that state?
Okay, are you talking about the state of guilt or the state of committing mistakes? Because they're two different things.
So one has already committed mistake, then you realize that I committed mistake and you are guilty about it. So from that guilt level, how do you rise?
Okay. So dealing with guilt, this is itself a whole, you could have a whole talk on this. But briefly, there are two extremes. One is you can have too much guilt, and you can have too little guilt. So too little guilt is where like some people do wrong, some people do bad, and they don't feel bad at all. And that's really bad. It's to such people. It's suppose we are walking along through a crowded road, we are rushing somewhere because there's some emergency, and while going along we step on somebody's foot. Now if you realize that, oh, I'm sorry. But suppose somebody steps on someone's foot and says, oh, that's you, they deliberately raise their foot and bang it again. I want to hurt you. They don't feel anything bad at all. Now that's really bad. So especially in today's world, where morality has become quite relativized. You think that is right for you, that is right for you. This is right for me, this is right for me. So when morality is relativized, often a big problem is too little guilt. And then when there is too little guilt, that can lead to very easy relapses. People keep doing the same thing again and again. And not only relapses, the relapses can also be worsened. So I did a bad thing, and then I do worse things thereafter. So one extreme is, it leads to I do terrible things. But on the other hand, if there is too much guilt, then what happens is it's like we are standing above ourselves in judgment, and we are beating ourselves up. You're like, okay, you fell down. If somebody has fallen down, you don't kick a fallen dog, as they say. You don't beat them down. You help them rise. So if there is too much guilt, then what happens is it makes one hopeless. So you could say if there's too little guilt, it makes one shameless. But if there's too much guilt, it makes one hopeless. And this hopeless means basically what happens, not that I do terrible things, I start thinking I am terrible. No, it is I did a terrible thing. I did a wrong thing. So in general, how do we find the balance of the right quantity of guilt? It is basically two things. If there is the balanced quantity of guilt, it helps us on one side to take responsibility. Okay, I made a mistake. But that responsibility is not only to that I made a mistake. But responsibility also is that I can rise above that mistake. And we have to understand that ultimately even God can't help us if we don't want to help ourselves. So it is, like I said, God's will is supreme, but our free will is also important. So if we are not ready to help ourselves, then no one can help us. So the balance is centered on, you could say, acknowledgement or admission. I admit that I made a mistake. But it's also rectification. Rectification of the mistake to the extent it is possible, and rectification of myself. That I have to raise myself. And for both of these, we need to be able to take responsibility. So, okay, I made a mistake and I'm sorry about it. I'll do what I can to fix it. But ultimately, I am my most fundamental hope. If I start beating myself up, then who is going to pick me up? So that's why we cannot have we often talk about improving our relationship with others, and that's important. But just as we need to have healthy relationship with others, we also need to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. And that means we should not be beating ourselves up too much internally. Okay? Thank you. Anyone last question before we stop? Oh, there are two more? Okay, yeah.
Why is the world always full of expectation? Like, if someone is working, or just in general, so someone might do a very good job, but in the background, the manager probably, still the manager won't be happy, or just in general, the whole world would expect more. So same with the musician, someone might sing really good, but the audience might still go for, yeah, we expect it.
Okay. So the world always expects more from us.
Yeah.
So what do we do about it? Well, in general, there are two there are two parts, not it could be extremes, but for growth, let me put it this way, then I'll come to the pendulum. For growth, consider parenting. If we are parenting a child, there are two aspects to it. There is, every parent has a right to expect from the children. Not only a right, but responsibility. That there is so much potential in you. And if you develop good habits, you work hard, you can do a lot. That expecting is essential. But along with that, accepting is also essential. Now, if there is only expecting, then what happens is there is too much pressure. On the other hand, if there is only accepting, then there is stagnation. The parents say to the child, okay, whatever you study, whatever marks you get, well, it's all fine. How many children are likely to study? Isn't it? It's very rare. So there has to be some. But what happens is, if there is only expecting and no accepting, then the child may start feeling that my parents don't really love me. Or rather, I have to achieve something to purchase their love. Now, the parent should always love their child. But then there is expectation, and that expectation is for the good of the child also. So in every relationship, especially in a parenting relationship, if the parents and children have a good communication, then the parents can also sense, am I expecting too much over here, and maybe I need to tone down. Or maybe I'm accepting too much over here, maybe we need to push. And that is why throughout human history, there have always been families means two parents. Nowadays, because of various things, there are single parent families. And those who have single parent families and they're raising children, that's a very difficult task. And if they're doing it, trying to do it well, that needs to be appreciated. But at the same time, broadly speaking, in a parental relationship, one parent will play the role of more of accepting. And the other parent will play the role of more of expecting. Now, who will be what? Maybe traditionally the fathers would expect and the mothers would accept. But it could be other way also, whatever it is. But there has to be that dual role, and it's best that the two roles are played by two parents. So now in our lives also, we need to have both kinds of people. So if we feel that we are having too many people who are expecting too much from us, then at one level it is good because they are pushing us to do more. But if that is the only kind of people we have, then we will be insecure, we will be uncomfortable, we will feel too stressed. So we also need to have some people who accept us. And that is why many times when somebody becomes a celebrity, then people have very high expectations of celebrities. It's almost like you should be walking in the air or something like that. Isn't it? So often celebrities, they don't know whom to trust, whom to connect with. So maybe if they have some friends with those people who were their friends before they became celebrities, then they say, I can just be normal with you. Isn't it? That means when I am with you, there's no expectation. So we do need some people who accept us. So try to find out. If you feel the burden of expectation being too much, try to find some people who accept us. And spend some time with them. Then that insecurity will decrease. So there will be people like that also. There are people who care for us for who we are, not what we achieve. If we achieve something, they're happy for us. But their relationship with us is not dependent on what we achieve, dependent on what we achieve. So if you have such relationships, cherish them, make time for them. Okay? Thank you. Yes, bro.
Thank you for guiding us. One thing in mind is, we always talk about guilt and purification, but that starts from what is right and what is wrong. That itself is a very fluid state. What is right for me is wrong for other person, and what is wrong for other person could be right for me. And how do you decide that?
Okay.
Because what a lot of Pandavas did was wrong, but there were a lot of things which Kauravas did wrong. But how do you,
Okay.
as Gita is
That's a good
prime
point.
example where we
That's a good point. So, were you there when I answered the point about harmony, that question? I talked about belonging. You came just now?
came here.
Okay. So, basically, I had answered that question that what is right and wrong is determined by harmonious belonging. We all belong to, where was this? We all belong to various wholes bigger than ourselves. So, I'm driving on a traffic. I'm driving on a road. Then there is a right way of driving. There is a wrong way of driving. And that's not a matter of opinion. That's a matter of objective fact. So ultimately, karma and accountability for karma is based on the right and wrong ways of belonging to the universe. So having said that, yes, there are two broad conceptions of ethics. Or many. I talk about ethics is basically the analysis, the system that analyzes what is right and wrong. So now, in ethics, there is absolute ethics, or it is called as categorical ethics, where this is right and this is wrong. And now the opposite of ethics is absolute is relative. That's what people say, okay, this is right for you, that is right for me. But you see that, and we see many times traditional morality was more towards absolute ethics. Contemporary morality is going more towards relative ethics. But ultimately, nobody can live completely with relative ethics. Because, say somebody asks, it's all subjective, it's all relative. Well, then you can ask such a person, is there anyone in the world right now who you think is doing something wrong? I'll say, of course, there are terrorists who kill innocent people. There are child abusers. There are rapists. We all have that understanding that some things are wrong. This was after the Second World War, there were the Nuremberg trials, where the Nazi leaders, they were tried. And their standard defense was, we were only following orders. So they had the gas chambers in which they just killed over 6 million Jews. And they said, we are following orders. And the principle in military is that you follow orders. And therefore we didn't do anything wrong. He says, no. You have to follow orders, but there's a basic sense of humanity which everyone has to have. And when you are just killing innocent people brutally, that is wrong. So relativizing ethics completely doesn't work. Nobody works like that. I was speaking in Amazon in Seattle, and the same question came up. So I may give the similar example. And after that, one of the attendees, he was a senior manager in Amazon. He said that, he says, we also don't agree with relative ethics entirely. He says, because he said that we are a company which sells products. And say when they have that whole section on apparel, what clothes people wear, and they will show men and women wearing those clothes. Sometimes those clothes can be quite revealing. But they say when it comes to children's clothes, we will not show children wearing those clothes. because we don't want in any way to encourage pedophilia. We don't want in any way to fuel people who have sexual desires towards small children. So although this is a commercial company, but still they have some boundaries. So the point I'm making is, we cannot say there is no category of right and wrong. So the more proper understanding is that between absolute and relative there is contextual. So ethics is contextual, means what? First of all, there is action itself. And the action can be right or wrong. So just focusing on the action to determine what is right and wrong, that is categorical ethics. This is the category of right, that is the category of wrong. But overall the Mahabharata says that if we consider action alone doesn't determine, there is also the intent of the action. So speaking truth is good. And normally we should always speak the truth. But suppose there's a riot going on and people of a particular community are being targeted. And a friend of ours from that community comes running to our house. Please save me, please protect me. And then we hide our friend in the basement. And then those rioters come and bang our door. Is he here? What should we do at that time? Should we speak the truth? Speaking truth is good, but in that case, it's not the right thing to do. So why? Because so you could say here, rather than action, let's put the word here. It's more of content. It's content of the action. What exactly am I doing? So there is content of the action, there is intent of the action, and then there is the effect of the action or the consequence of the action. So what is right and wrong has to be determined by considering all these factors. So it may seem that the Pandavas also did some wrong things. But if you look at the broader context in which the Pandavas did their things, it was from the categorical ethics perspective, it might have been wrong, from the absolute ethics perspective. But it was not just simply relative. There was some deliberation over there. When Duryodhan when he tried to poison Bhima or he tried to burn the Pandavas alive, that was out of pure spite. But when the Pandavas did something, it was, you could say, a necessary strategy at that particular point. It was not out of spite. Okay? Thank you.
One last question.
Okay.
This is for Bhagavad Gita chapter 4.18.
18.
Bit complex to understand for us. So,
Karmanya karmaya pashyed.
yeah.
Karmanya.
One who says
Yeah.
inaction.
I really have to give a separate class for this. but let me try to explain. See, karmanya karmaya pashyed, akarmanincha karmaya, sa buddhiman manusheshu, sa yuktah krishna karmakrut. So what is Krishna saying over here? Karmanya akarma ya pashyed. So he says, what is the vision that one should have? Karmanya akarma. That means when somebody has done action, in that action you see inaction. Karmanya akarmaya pashyed. And another says, akarmani cha karmayaha. So when somebody is doing inaction, you see action. And Krishna says, if you have such a vision, that person is wise. Now, if we read this verse, we may have to conclude we are not wise. Isn't it? But it's always when we translate from one language to another, there is a certain level of complexity. But if you look at the Sanskrit word, I talked about earlier how karma and karma has multiple meanings. So what does this verse mean? That to see action, karmanya akarmaya pashyed, to see inaction. So what does it mean? Action here means activity. And inaction here, akarma rather. So the Sanskrit words are karma and akarma. So akarma can refer either to, okay, let me put it this way. I have to complicate it before simplifying it a little bit. See, karma can mean many things, but two things. At one level, it can mean activity. And if karma means activity, then akarma can mean inactivity. Now karma can also mean a culpable action or action for which we are responsible. Karma means action that leads to reaction. And if we take that meaning, then akarma mean action that leads to no reaction. So now how can there be an action that leads to no reaction? Well, yes, say suppose an ordinary person gets angry and shoots the other person. That's murder. But if somebody is a soldier on the battlefield and that person shoots the enemy, no, that's not culpable. That person will not be held responsible for that. So there can be action that leads to reaction and action that does not lead to reaction. So karma can mean these two things, correspondingly akarma can mean two different things. Okay. So now from this perspective, karmanya akarma ya pashed. The first line means even when there is activity, there is no reaction. That's one case Krishna is saying. And the other is there is inactivity, but there is reaction. That is action that will lead to reaction. So let's take a simple example for this. Say if a surgeon cuts a patient. Now cutting somebody's stomach is a terrible thing to do. But if a surgeon is doing that, that is action that will lead to no reaction. You don't know the police are going to arrest the surgeon. No, because the context is such that is action that will lead to no reaction. So in the context of the battlefield, Krishna is telling Arjuna that you are a Kshatriya. That means you, Kshata trayate iti Kshatriya. You are meant to protect. Kshata is injury. You have to protect people from hurt and injury. You are a martial guardian of society. And when you fight to curb antisocial elements, then you won't be held responsible for those actions. So karmanya akarmaya pashed. On the other hand, akarmani cha karmaya. That suppose, say again in a hospital setting, there is maybe the emergency ward or just a hospital setting in ICU, suddenly all the sensors start beeping and a patient is having a heart attack or something. And the medical personnel just stand there and don't do anything. And they say, we didn't do anything. And that's why we are punishing you. Isn't it? Inaction can be culpable. In law, there are mistakes of commission and mistakes of crimes of commission. That means you sanctioned it, you did it, or you got others to do it. And crimes of omission, where it's a crime because you didn't do what you are expected to do. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, in this situation, you may think that if you don't fight, then you're not doing anything. But by not doing anything, you are doing a lot. And you will be culpable for that. So basically, the whole mood of the verse is, don't judge actions only by their externals. Oh, this person is fighting, therefore this person is bad. This person is not fighting, oh, this person is good. No. Somebody may be fighting for a good cause, and somebody may not fighting for a bad cause. Isn't it? So it depends. So that's a sabuddhiman manusheshu. That person who can see beyond externals to internals, that is a wise person. Okay. So thank you very much for your thoughtful participation. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Itai Gaur Premanande.